Hey folks, this is Cindy. Thanks so much for stopping by. I know I haven't shared a video in the last couple weeks, but I am back today to share with you how to make some die cut cloud stencils. My Favorite Things has a cloud stencil that I'll link down in the description below as well as over on my blog. I don't have that, so I wanted to make my own. Also, I couldn't decide which stamp set that I wanted to use, and I realized that both of these stamp sets lend really well to the technique that I'm going to be doing today, so I thought I would share both with you. First up is the Inkon3 Magic Dragon stamp set. Look at the stamp set. It is so darling. I cannot get over these itty bitty little dragons here. You could definitely build up quite the scene with all of these images on here. There's the gems and the rainbows. There's the candles, there's the flames, the little butterfly stars, plus the sentiments are just too cute. I can't even stand it. But I really wanted to focus on just these dragons. I couldn't help myself. I had to color these in. Next up, I'm going to be using the Neat and Tangled Magical Day stamp set. Now, this has been out for a little while, and I have not had the chance to use it, but I cannot get over this unicorn. I'm not a big fan of stamping unicorns on all the things, but this unicorn I'm in love with. I had to use it. I'm also going to be using the Neat and Tangle Fairy Dust stamp set. You could definitely use this one on its own, but it lends really well to what I'm going to be doing today. So for my cloud stencil, I'm going to be using the Fawn Puffy Clouds border dies, as well as the Newton's Nook Sky border die set. I wanted 4 different shapes of clouds. You could just use 3, you could use 2, whatever works for you, but I'm going to use all 4 of those today. I'm also going to be using that rectangle stitch frame from Simon Says Stamp bundle of stitch shapes. This one is a must, folks. If you have any stitch die set in your stash, this one you should definitely have. It's perfect for the front of a card panel. So that's it. That's what I'm going to be using today, and let's get started on this card. I have die cut some Nino Solar White 80-pound cardstock with the Simon Says Stamp stitch bundle, or I'm sorry, the stitched rectangle. And now I have my stamps lined up in my MISTI exactly where I want them. I'm not going to do any major masking in terms of my placement of those. I will have to do some here in a moment to do our clouds, but that's fine. In the meantime, I'm not going to mask off any of those. I have them laid out on my card panel here, and I'm kind of trying to make them look like they're all kind of looking at each other, that they're kind of interacting with one another. And I'm also going to stamp that sentiment at the same time. You could totally save that for last, but I'm going to do it all at once. I'm also going to be using Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink because I am going to be doing some Copic coloring, and I do triple stamp these. I want those eyes to be nice and dark and black. I don't show you that, but I definitely triple stamp them. For my little unicorn here, I kind of have him down in the bottom left because I want to make the clouds seem like they take up the majority of the top right. And it looked really good this way. Plus, I'm also making sure that I leave enough room for my sentiment in the end. And I'm not going to stamp that right now because I know that I'm going to be going over the top of it later with that fairy dust stamp, so I'm kind of skipping that for the moment. Again, I'm going to triple stamp this guy because I want to make sure that he's nice and crisp and black. And then I'm going to move on here. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how I'm going to color in these little dragons. I'm only going to show you one. It's the same principle for all of them. So I didn't think that I needed to show you how I colored in all of them, but I definitely wanted to show you the process at least once. I have G12, G14, G17, and G29. You could also color these guys in a yellow green. I'm choosing this basic green. This is one of my favorite green combinations for what I would call a basic green in my world. This is a basic green because I already know what color I'm going to be using to do those clouds in my background, and I felt that this green would match perfectly. I'm mapping out where my shadows are going to go with my G12, and I gotta be honest, I was kind of struggling a little bit with my marker. I had jammed my finger right before I shot this video, and it was aching so bad, but I was determined to get these card panels colored in. So at times I kind of have to adjust how I'm holding it. It doesn't feel at all natural to me, but it's fine. It works out in the end. We're good to go. So again, I'm just going to map out where my shadows are going to go with my lightest color. That way, if I make any mistakes, no harm, no foul, I can go back over it later and fix it. Once I have those mapped out, I'm going to bring in my G29. This is my darkest shadow color. I am not doing anything spectacular in terms of technique. These images are just small enough. I really don't have a lot of room. Plus, the other thing is, I'm going to add a little bit of texture to them later with a Stardust Sakura pen. So I don't feel like I need to add in any texture now in my technique with coloring them. So I'm just drawing in these little fine lines. Once I had my G29 where I wanted it, I'm bringing in the G17, and I am being really conservative. You can see that I have loads of white space to work with. Number one, I want to make sure that I have all of that white space because I want this guy to have quite a bit of highlight. I want him to read pretty light. Number two, I don't want to have to try to take away color later. It's always easier to add color than it is to take it away. So I'm just kind of erring on this side of caution. I do end up going back in after I have everything colored in, and I add a little bit more of the G29 and G17, and I blend it out a wee bit more with that G14, and then with another final blend of the G12. Plus, again, I'm kind of struggling here, folks, because my finger is throbbing so bad. Anyway, so I went in with the G14. Now I'm going back over it with the G12, and look how light he is. I could leave it like this. It would probably be just fine, but I wanted just a little bit more on this guy. I didn't want him quite that light. He still needs to be light enough that you see the rounded shape of his body and his head, but not so light that he looks like a super pale green. That's not at all what I'm going for. So after I went in with that G12, I went in with the G14 again. Now I have the G17, and again, I'm stretching those shadows out just a little bit more, bringing it back behind his head. I feel like it would have casted a little bit more shadow there around the side of his head to make it look a little bit more round. Now I'm going to blend it back out with my G14. I'm starting to fill in some of that highlighted area that I had just simply had the G12 on, and then I'll blend it back out again with my G12, and we're going to call it a day. Now the upside to always coloring in a little bit on the lighter side is you can always add more color. The beautiful thing about Copics is they are transparent, so you can just keep going back over the top of them provided you have enough light area. You can keep going back over the top of them. Now, in some cases, lighter colored Copics are going to remove darker colored Copics, but it's always better to go lighter than go darker and have to try to go lighter. So I lost the footage when I colored him in. So I'm going to take my little pick tool here, and I'm going to talk to you about what I had done, even though I can't show you what I did. So I started with my C3 mapped out along those darkest shadow areas, and I'm pointing out where I would have done that. And then I went back in with my C5, went directly over the top of that C3 in those shadow areas, right where I'm pointing out. I blend that back out with my C3. I go to my C1 and then my C00. And I make sure that I leave legitimate white space on my little unicorn here when I'm done. So by the time this guy's colored in and he has his background surrounding him, he is going to look like a white horse. Right now, it looks really gray, and that's okay. Don't stop. Don't be afraid that you've gone so dark that this doesn't look right, that you ruined it, because you haven't. Just keep going. That is almost always something to keep in mind when you're coloring in white. It's scary at first, but if you keep at it, you'll be surprised how it turns out in the end. So now I want this guy to have all the rainbow. So I'm going to start with his little horn here, and I'm going to do RV 63, 66, and 69. I am going to show you, I think I show you everything I did with all of the colors. If not, it's once I start getting to his mane and his tail, it's pretty much the same thing. Map it out with my RV 63, went in with the RV 69, blended with the RV 66, finished it off with the RV 63, and called it good. So now I'm going to start with the top of his mane there, and I'm going to make this red. I have the RV 22, 24, 29, and the R39 for my darkest shadow color. Again, same thing, map it out with the R22, go in with the R39, blend it, start blending it out with the R27, R24, and then finish it off with the R22. You do not need to use 4 colors on this tiny little area. It's just something I do, but you don't need to do that. If I were to skip any of these colors, I would go R22, R24, R27, and call it good there. All right, so now we're at orange. I'm using YR00, YR02, YR04, and YR07. Again, you don't have to use this many colors. I just like how much more vibrant and how much more it pops. The other thing you could do is you could totally make this look like legitimate hair. So you could make it look like it had the texture of hair. I didn't feel like I needed to do that. I just really wanted to convey the image that he had a rainbow mane. And honestly, by the time the rainbow is on there, that's all you really see anyways. Adding more detail to this would be fun, but definitely not necessary. If you're familiar at all with coloring in hair, you could definitely color this in just like that. It would be longer strokes, but it would look really great. You could do that if you'd like. Again, I just didn't think it was necessary. So for my yellows, I have a Y00, Y02, Y04, and Y23. This is just the yellows I chose. You could use any yellow combination that you like, that you're comfortable with. This was just the first thing that I grabbed out of my storage container, and I'm going to call it good. For the greens, I'm going to use the same greens that I had used on my little dragons there. I have the G12, G14, G17, and G29. There isn't any particular technique that I'm using on this one, just like with the little dragons. I'm mapping out with my lightest color, going in with a fairly fine line of my darkest color, then going in with my next lightest color, and then starting to work my way back out to my highlight color. In this case, I mapped it out with G12, went in with the G29, blending out with G17, blending out with G14, and then finishing off with that G12. Then I'm going to color in the next section of hair with a blue-green. You could skip this. You could make just this portion of it blue and then just color in all of the tail purple. However, I love a complete rainbow, so I had to make this work. And it's easy enough, so it's totally fine. I'm using BG23, BG45, BG49, and BG57 only to balance out that BG49. I can't find, for the life of me, I cannot find my other BGs. So I'm making this work for me. BG49 is fine. BG57 is pretty much the same level or same depth of darkness as the BG49, but the BG49 is a little too green for my taste. So I'm just making this work, and I'm going back over the top of that BG49 with the BG57, and it blends out really well, I think. Okay, so now for this guy's tail, I'm going to color the top portion of it blue and the bottom portion of it purple. I have the B12, B14, and B18. This is one of my favorite blue combinations. I really love how this blue just pops, so that's why I decided to go with this. You could use any blue you would like, B00, B02, B05. Those would also be great for this, but I prefer how this one just stands out just a little bit more. Now, I wasn't paying attention when I was coloring in his tail, and I actually colored in more with the B14 than what I intended, so there isn't as much highlight on his tail than what I would like. That's fine. There's a couple of things I could do here. I could go in with a white colored pencil and kind of reinforce that highlight. If I wanted, I could go over it with my colorless blender and kind of push back some of that B14. At the end of the day, it really didn't matter, so I just kind of left it. Now I am going to color this in violet. I start out with the the V12, going with the V06, and I can't talk because there's too many V's. Go in with the V09, go back with the V06, V04, finish it off with the V12, and call it a day. Now I'm coloring in this little heart red. I had colored it in with the R22, went in with the R24, R39, back to the R24, and then finished it off with the R39. I did this because I wanted it to look like it was a little curved. You could just pick one of those reds and color it in and call it a day. All right, so let's get on to our stenciling here because that's what this is all about. I have die cut some graphics acetate, and I'm going to link to that down below as well over on my blog with those dies. And I just did all 4 sides. As you can see here, it doesn't look like it's going to work out right because there's those little things that go up along the edge where the dies met when I die cut them. Actually, those are just fine. Don't worry about those a bit. Those are actually part of what you want in the die. Because these have stitches on them, I'm going stitch side down because I don't want my blending tool to catch on those stitches. So just make sure you do that, and it actually, you won't get any ink through those stitches. They're so fine, and that plastic is just thick enough that you won't get any ink through those. So I'm going to line this up where I want it, and I did make sure that I masked off all of my images before I started this. And I used full stick Post-it notes. You could use any masking paper you'd like as long as it's going to hold up to quite a bit of ink blending here. I am going to secure these down. I secured down the top of my panel because I don't want it to shift. I have it here at an angle, and I'm going to be using the Distress ink in Broken China. You could use any blue color you'd like. I had my heart set on that Broken China because I knew that my images were colored bright enough that I needed a little bit brighter blue to help this stand out. Now I'm just going along the edge of my stencil there, and I'm kind of dragging it out. I don't have a whole lot of ink on my stencil to begin with, but I kind of slowly build that up. I do have this sped up because I didn't think that you needed to sit through a whole bunch of ink blending, but in real time, I'm actually taking my time here and I'm slowly building that color up. Now, because I don't have the blending completely covered up and I do have some color reference here, I can see kind of right out the gate when I need to stop. Now, in some cases, when you're masking off and ink blending, it's kind of hard to get to that visual, and a lot of times you can end up going too dark. That's kind of not the case here. That's also the benefit of using that clear plastic, that acetate, is I can see exactly how dark my ink blending is. I am also rotating the stencil. So what I have in mind as I'm doing this is I'm going wider and fatter with those clouds towards the bottom of the panel. And as I go up towards the top, then I use the shorter, thinner clouds to kind of finish that off. So it looks like it kind of graduates as far as the width of my clouds there. I'm also going to take this Broken China and I'm going to start ink blending around the edges, kind of filling in some of that white space of those clouds. You really only need a thinner edge in order to see the separation between those clouds. You don't need to keep them that open and that white. You totally can if you'd like, but you don't need to. So I'm going to finish off the unicorn pretty much the same way. The only thing I'm going to do different is I'm going to mask off a portion of my card panel instead of doing the whole thing like I did here. And I'm only going to show you a portion of that. I'm not going to show you how I do the stenciling. It's the same thing as I did on my little dragon here. I have 2-inch Post-it labeling tape and I have it cut down right down the middle. I'm making sure my straight edge is going towards the center of my card, and I'm masking off a 1/2 inch all the way around. Again, I'm not going to show you the whole thing. You'll actually see exactly what I'm talking about here in just a moment. I'm also, once I have this done, I'm also going to put this in my Misty stamping tool. I'm going to take that fairy dust stamp and I'm going to stamp the stars and the little, the fairy dust right over the top of this panel. On my dragon card, I take the stamp out of my Misty, I put it on a stamp block, and I just stamp it randomly around the card panel. Now, I am going to apologize, folks. I am missing some of the footage on how I finish these guys off, so let me tell you what I do. After I have the background stamped and all of that is good to go, my sentiments are stamped on there, I take some Nuvo Aqua Shimmer pen, I go over the top of the unicorn's mane, his horn, his tail. I also go over the little wings of the dragon, their horns. Then I also take a Sakura clear glaze pen, go over the little spikes on the dragons as well is their eyes. And then I'm going to take a Stardust, a glitter dust pen, and I'm going to add little dots of texture to my little dragons here. Hopefully you'll get a better idea what that looks like in my pictures. Now, those are pretty much done. I am going to take some fun foam and I'm going to pop these up so they have a little bit more dimension. You don't have to do that. You could just definitely put them right there on your card base and call it good. I just wanted these to stand out just a wee bit more. I'm also going to be using the Catherine Pooler white note cards. I love, love, love these note cards. They're nice and thick, and they're a nice bright white. They match Nina Solar White cardstock perfectly. These are definitely a must for your stash, folks. I will have those linked down below as well as over on my blog if you're interested in them. You could also do a light blue card base if you would like to match these, but I think the white is just perfect for them. That is it, folks. We are done. We are good to go. I hope you enjoyed learning about die cut cloud stencils today. I really like how these turned out, and I really enjoyed that I was able to incorporate these two stamp sets in with the same technique. They are so darling and so much fun. I hope you enjoyed my cards today. If you did, hit that like button and share it with your friends. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and tap that bell next to the subscribe button so you can receive all future notifications. Thanks again so much for stopping by. Until next time.